The story starts with a man named Lewis busy cutting wire fences to sell. When he's caught by security for trespassing in a construction project, Lewis tries to lie by claiming he's lost. However, the security guards don't immediately believe him. When he hands over his ID, Lewis sees an opportunity and attacks the guard. After taking the guard's watch, he flees in his car, taking stolen goods like wire fences and metal objects. Lewis then heads to a place to sell stolen goods. There, he tries to find work, but the owner refuses him upon learning that Lewis is a thief. Disappointed, Lewis leaves and continues his journey. Along the way, he sees a car accident and decides to pull over. Lewis is curious about the incident and sees some journalists taking photos and videos. One of them, named Joe, explains that they're recording videos to sell to TV stations. Lewis, intrigued, asks Joe if he needs any footage, but Joe says he doesn't. Shortly after, the radio announces another accident involving John, prompting Joe to shout at his companion, and he immediately heads to the scene. The scene then shifts to Lewis's house, where he's watching some morning news broadcasts and sees the journalists' recordings from last night's accident, capturing the victims up close in a dramatic manner. Lewis then steals a bike to buy some journalist equipment, including a camera and a bug to intercept police communications, so he can get incident info faster. Lewis starts his actions whenever he hears an incident code, rushing to the location and starting recording. Lewis, undeterred, never learns his lesson despite being scolded by the police officers. One night, Lewis hears the incident code for a car robbery on the street, and he rushes to the scene to record. While there, he also meets another journalist and eavesdrops on how the journalist sells his footage. Lewis then goes to a local TV station, KWLA6E, to try to sell his recordings. There, he meets Nina, the morning news editor at the TV station. Lewis is also introduced to a video editor named Frank Crush. Impressed by Lewis's footage, Nina buys it for $250. She suggests Lewis use the money to get better equipment. Later, Lewis returns home and watches the morning news on channel KWLA6 to see his footage aired. Excited, he starts studying police radio codes. Lewis then hires an assistant named Rick, whose tasks include listening to emergency calls, learning police radio codes, assisting with navigation, and waiting in the car. Lewis and Rick listen to police radio codes while Rick practices memorizing them, responding only to serious incidents like accidents, fires, robberies, or murders. One night, they receive a fire call. Since Rick is still new, he's nervous and confused when giving directions to Lewis, causing them to be late. When they arrive at the scene, the victims have already been evacuated, so Lewis misses the opportunity to cover the incident. They then rush to another location where a shooting has just occurred at a house by unknown assailants. Lewis responded to the call swiftly, sneaking into the crime scene cautiously while Rick remained on guard in the car. With bravery and determination, Lewis entered the crime scene house, gradually altering the situation, even managing to retrieve an important email from the homeowner. Once they got the recording, Lewis headed straight to the KWLA6 TV station. At the station, tension filled the air as the recording results were discussed. Nina, the sharp editor-in-chief, expressed satisfaction with the quality of Lewis's recording, despite Frank's objection due to the controversial recording method. Nevertheless, Lewis's spirit remained undeterred. Together with Rick, they explored the city day and night, capturing crucial moments to present to the audience. Then, on a dark night, a terrible accident occurred. Lewis was the only journalist to arrive first. With intelligence and bravery, he seized the opportunity in the absence of police or ambulances, ensuring that his recording became the sole source of current information. Lewis even took the extra step of repositioning the victim to make his recording more dramatic. Upon arriving at the TV station, Nina noticed bloodstains on Lewis's shirt, but Lewis cunningly diverted her attention. On that day, Lewis tries to ask Nina out on a date, but she declines, stating that she's too old for him. While Lewis is relaxing during the day, Joe suddenly arrives, offering a new camera with advanced features and access to various sources of information, including the police. Lewis rejects the offer, expressing that he feels successful enough working independently. Then, the scene shifts to a restaurant where Lewis and Nina are having dinner. They discuss work and gradually transition to personal topics. Nina firmly asserts that their meetings are strictly professional. Lewis insists on dating Nina, even threatening to sell the incident footage to other TV stations if she refuses. However, Nina remains unmoved. Later, Lewis receives information about a major event, a plane crash, and rushes there. Unfortunately, the police arrive first and prohibit them from recording. Joe and his team manage to capture exclusive footage by arriving before the police. Joe mocks Lewis for rejecting his offer. Lewis then goes to the local news station and brings the footage of a car accident, but Nina actually wants footage of the plane crash that just happened. Nina is furious for missing the chance to report on the news that would have been a headline on various news channels, while her career depends heavily on its success. Filled with anger, Lewis secretly plans to sabotage Joe's car to cause an accident. That night, a tragic accident befalls Joe and his team due to Lewis's actions. Lewis, who had anticipated this, handles the incident carefully. He even records the moment when Joe is dying up close. One night, a police radio report about an armed robbery prompts Lewis and Rick to rush to the scene. They arrive before the police, and Lewis immediately sneaks into the yard of the incident location while Rick waits in the car. Lewis successfully records the robber's car plate and enters the house. Discovering the deceased victim. Lewis shows no concern for the victim's fate. What matters to him is recording the incident clearly and dramatically. Afterward, Lewis and Rick leave just before the police arrive. Lewis brings the video recording to Nina, who initially deems it unethical and not up to broadcasting standards. However, Lewis, understanding Nina's character, persuades her with a high price while threatening to sell it to other TV stations. Lewis's cunningness once again surfaced as he discreetly edited the video by cutting out the part showing the robber's license plate number, aiming to ensure the perpetrator wouldn't be easily apprehended. He ensured that his coverage video continued to be broadcasted to heighten public awareness. Lewis assured Nina that she wouldn't regret paying him dearly because KWLS6 would keep presenting updates on the case until the culprit was caught. Additionally, he requested his production name to always be credited when the news was aired. Lewis also desired Nina to introduce him to the studio manager and director. To entice Nina, Lewis offered the recording of Joe's accident incident for free if Nina agreed to sleep with him. Nina complied with Lewis's desires for the sake of her career. The robbery news was broadcasted with all victims' faces censored and Lewis's production name included. Lewis appeared very pleased with his success. When two detectives visited Lewis's house to inquire about the robbery incident, Lewis didn't seem worried. Lewis reveals the reason behind his involvement, stating that initially he just wanted to help the victims. However, suspicious false alibis from the crime scene prompted him to dig deeper. After realizing he failed to capture the robber's car plate, Lewis gives the edited video copy to the two detectives before leaving. However, his departure doesn't mark the end of Lewis's involvement. He decides to investigate the robber's car plate and find out the owner's address. In the silent midnight, Lewis and Rick plan their visit to the robber's house. However, as time passes, Rick starts demanding additional payment from Lewis. Rick's threats against Lewis escalate the tension. Rick threatens to inform the police about Lewis's plan and cover up the perpetrator's identity unless he's paid more. Despite being tempted to give in, Lewis refuses to become a victim of Rick's selfishness. When the robber finally appears, Lewis and Rick immediately follow him. They eventually arrive at a bustling restaurant. Lewis doesn't hesitate to call 911 and report the location as well as the potential firearms brought by the robber. As the police radio sounds in Lewis's car, the perpetrator's location is revealed. They are ready to act. Lewis chooses to record from inside the car and instructs Rick to record outside. Rick's arrogant attitude reaches its peak as he refuses Lewis's orders. Firmly, Lewis asserts that it's not about his inability to understand others, but rather his dislike for people's behavior like Rick's. The threat to harm Rick finally convinces him to get out of the car, just as the police arrive at the scene. In an unexpected turn of events, a shootout erupts between the police and the robbers. An accident occurs where one of the robbers is injured, while the others flee. Lewis and Rick don't retreat, they chase the robber's car until it eventually skids off the road. Lewis tries to check on the condition of the robber from a safe distance. Upon learning that the robber is still alive, he traps Rick by convincing him that the robber has already died. He instructs Rick to record right in front of the car. As Rick approaches, the robber immediately shoots Rick several times until he's dead. Lewis records everything, mercilessly, even as he's dying. Lewis's actions prove that there is no room for crime under his watch, even if it means taking one of them down. Lewis then visited KWLA6 station. Nina was thrilled with the video results successfully recorded by Lewis. Detectives Frontier and Lieberman arrived at the station to request the video recording as evidence, but Nina refused, stating that the video belonged to KWLA6 and was copyright-free. They then went elsewhere to deliver the results of the police investigation, which showed that the house robbery they had previously aired was actually a drug robbery. However, Nina refused to broadcast that information for fear of diluting the established news essence. Detective Frontier was questioning Lewis. Lewis lied again, claiming that he accidentally remembered the robber's face and recorded it, even though he had previously stated he couldn't identify the robber clearly. Although Detective Frontier was convinced that Lewis was lying, he couldn't do much due to a lack of strong evidence. The seasons changed, and the story shifted to the night when Lewis had hired 3 new employees to develop his production. They were still in the internship stage, with hopes of becoming permanent employees if their performance was satisfactory. And the film Nightcrawler was completed.